Also new tonight, word that Glendon Crawford, the alleged mastermind behind the plot, is also one of the people involved in a class action lawsuit against Governor Cuomo and the legislature opposing the SAFE Act. In the meantime, the two suspects sit behind bars. They are waiting for their next court appearance, which is scheduled for July 10th. Their attorneys working to craft their defense in the meantime. Our Matt Markham spoke to lawyers today about the challenges, though, facing the defense. He is live in our newsroom tonight with more. Good evening, Matt.
Good evening, Dory. The 67-page complaint has no shortage of details on how the alleged X-ray weapon may be built or used, but the finer details of the larger case will be the ones defense attorneys will likely target if they can find them.
You know, it felt like we were dancing in the dark and shadow boxing all the time.
Terry Kindlon knows a thing or two about terrorism cases. He represented Yassine Aref at trial in the mid-2000s, an imam at an Albany mosque, and a defendant convicted in connection with helping to plan a missile attack.
The biggest challenge of all was the secrecy that the government employed in the presentation of its case. Every time we came to a point where we needed certain information, it wasn't there.
But the information the prosecution has or doesn't have could make a difference when Glendon Crawford and Feight get their day in this courtroom.
It is 100% going to be an uphill battle.
Attorney Lindsay Jacob is a former Albany County Assistant District Attorney.
When you're monitoring someone for a year, there's a lot that needs to be looked at.
Jacob believes the defense will try to poke through any possible loopholes it finds in the government's case.
All that surveillance, that all those wiretaps, that all those video recordings, all those electronic recordings, I would take a very hard look at all of that and see, were there any due process violations? Was anything done that shouldn't have been done? Was anything supposed to have been done that didn't get done?
Kindlon's companion at the defense table was Kevin Lubrand, who represented the other man involved in the missile case and will defend Glendon Crawford.
If at the end of the day that activity was not criminal, then you can have a mountain range of proof, and it is meaningless.
So the attorneys we spoke with are quick to say this may not be an open and shut case for the government, largely for something we discussed this time last night. I'll explain more at 6 o'clock, Dory.
You know, Matt, it really is such a fine line here because you're talking about the suspects being followed by the government. They met with undercover agents. One even bought X-ray tubes for Crawford to examine. So I guess could the defense go for an entrapment defense here?
Well, it's probably not likely, Dory, because the lawyers say that's a very difficult route to walk in the courtroom under any circumstance, especially since the indictment is very specific in its allegations. So if Crawford himself described the device and the capabilities allegedly as Hiroshima on a light switch, and he tested parts of it on his own accord, I'm told an entrapment defense would be very hard, if not possible, for a defense attorney to use in a case like this.
Sure that the attorneys will be examining every aspect of it as we move forward, and we'll be covering it, of course, every step of the way. Matt Markham reporting live. Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
Now, we have broken down a timeline, some of the events surrounding this case. It was on April 11th of last year that police say Crawford, the alleged mastermind, visited a Schenectady synagogue asking for help to kill Israel's enemies. The FBI was then alerted about that on April 17th of last year. Then it was on May 30th that Crawford met with an undercover agent at a restaurant in Scotia. After several more meetings, it was on May 20th of this year, about a year later, that an undercover agent met with Crawford at an Albany hotel to test the triggering system. Then just this past Tuesday, officers arrested both Crawford and Feight. For the latest, as this investigation continues, you can head online to CBS6Albany.com.